morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, August 10th, 2016, and this is Before the First Cup with Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy Wednesday, everyone. It is 65 degrees and partly cloudy here in upstate New York. We got some decent rain overnight, and it was definitely much needed. So where do we leave off yesterday? We titled the show, DoD Partners with Tech Titans, Hacking Humans, Implants, and the Internet of Things. And yeah, it was pretty scary. We connected a lot of dots yesterday. It has become official. It was announced with the creation of the Defense Innovation Advisory Board back in March of 2016 that a lot of the heads of the tech industry, namely being Eric Schmidt, CEO, chairman of Alphabet, parent company of Google, as well as Jeff Bezos, president and CEO of Amazon, are on this board. We had, I don't remember the dude's name, but he was the head of the Broad Institute, which is a synthetic biology group that collaborates between MIT and Harvard that are working with George Church on the synthetic human genome. We had run across also another sub-company of Google, Verily. Their life sciences division was working with GlaxoSmithKline in regards to creating a bioelectronic device that can go in and stimulate the vagus nerve and can manipulate your health as well as brain chemicals we've discovered. We found that out a long time ago. Gut bacteria, which is also on that direct connect of that nerve. They can implant these. We saw another story about the implantable sensors the size of a grain of sand called smart motes that can go into your body, and they can zippity zap muscles or neurons and, cause things to happen. Well, we ended the show with a story out of Big Think. I had mentioned Big Think. Typically this is like very watered down science for the masses, putting it with big, pretty pictures and simple words so people get what they're talking about. Sometimes a video with, just very close up, no distractables in the background to get you to pay attention for a short period of time. And they happened to release a story called To Chip or Not to Chip, Would You Get a Biotech Implant? We never got to finish that yesterday, so I think that's where we're going to kick it off. They're really planning on now rolling out to the general public. All of the dots have lined up, and it is time to make the move to be able to integrate us all into the Internet of Things, right? We've talked about that a lot of times, and now they're coming right out and saying it, and how it's going to be good for us because it'll be for your health and be able to cure you of what your diseases are. It says, we kind of talked about some of the history here with Google Glass, and it started out with the BlackBerry and how we all got hyper-connected and loved our phones, and it's almost an addiction now, which it is. And that was really, I think, DARPA's been studying pushing the chemical buttons for a long time, and I really think that they definitely knew. If you go back through the research journals, you'll find out that they already knew that dopamine was the addiction chemical. They've been studying Parkinson's for a long time, and Parkinson's medication pushes the dopamine button. Parkinson's is actually a deficiency in dopamine, and that's why when you take treatment for Parkinson's, you typically end up with some sort of gambling or sexual problem, becoming a sex addict or whatever, because you need that dopamine dose. They also were talking about now the future. Of course, we have these devices coming out from Google's Verily division for testing glucose. We had also the new collaboration between Verily and GlaxoSmithKline. They were going after diabetes as one of the first tests of this technology. But now, of course, the next thing that's coming up is whether or not it would just be easier, to put it in your clothes as wearables. Good old Regina Duggan, who was responsible for that. And DARPA Dan is part of that same division now within Google. Or if it would just be easier to have it implanted in your body. So anyway, let's continue from where we left off. Perhaps you can guess where this tech-enabled rabbit hole goes from here. It seems that the next step in our increasingly intimate relationship with technology would be embedded tech or being chipped. Just as we were getting used to the idea of the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything might already be on the horizon, and having a microchip implanted under one's skin would dramatically enhance the many benefits already provided or merely hinted at by smartphones and wearables. A chip under the skin could instantly measure physical metrics, such as blood glucose and blood pressure, ding ding, and it could dispense your medication at a precise time and precise dosage. It would allow you to unlock the front door, check out at this register, or pay the bus fare with simply the touch or wave of your hand. Of course, some intrepid folks are already way ahead of the curve. A CNN poll from 2014 profiles a small subculture of self-hackers who have embedded compasses in their shoulders and magnets in their ears, among other things. And one such pioneer, Rich Lee, talks about the almost, and this is kind of strange, erotic quality of detecting a sensation via embedded technology that was never there before. So there you go, ding. So it's an erotic, quote-unquote, quality of having these new sensations of embeddable technology with these new superpowers. Again, that's the dangling carrot, that dangling dopamine carrot. It's going to provide you this sense of anticipation of all these great and wonderful things that you can do that are like riding 150 miles an hour on the Autobahn. That same sort of adrenaline rush that you get when you do things that are exciting. But the rest of us might not be so quick to go under the knife and become first generation, or second if you count pacemakers and prosthetics, cyborgs. Smartphones have already gone a long way in showing us that some of the perils and trade-offs inherent in keeping our tech so close to the breast. And they talk about Google Glass. Yes, it became dangerously distracting. And they're saying that maybe it was just ahead of its time. And like I said, a lot of this technology that's coming out now was already on the market in its first rendition back in the 90s and early 2000s. I mean, even the promise of being able to track children, fleet vehicles, old people with chip technology. And at the time, there had been research in embeddables, and they were having issues trying to prevent the immune system from encasing them and turning it into more of a cyst under the skin. I know they kind of worked those kinks out by chipping our pets. Don't think that was all about making sure Fido didn't get lost. That also had a lot to do with experimentation and trying to perfect the technologies. But anyway, so putting aside the technology and fashion debate, whether they will take on the name implantables or embeddables, these under-the-skin devices will only further magnify controversy. To be chipped will be to abandon, ding, 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 with a sort of finality, any pure notion of privacy in one's life. And we've talked about this so many times before. The last bastions of freedom. Mine were driving in my car with the tunes cranked up and the roof open and being able to have my thoughts. Those are my two most precious things in my life, because those are the only two times that I ever really get to be alone. And I think that's why I love them so much because those are those moments where I can be me, just me. Me without having to worry about anybody or anything, just me. And I mean driving, of course, I have to worry about people on the road. But I mean, it's second nature to drive. And getting on the road and having the wind blow in your hair and listening to some music that you really enjoy is just a great pleasure. And that's all going to be gone. Self-driving cars and implantable technology, you will never, ever, ever be alone without somebody knowing your thoughts or seeing your facial expressions. You will be surveilled 24/7. I saw Pigmine had a video that came out last night about, and we've talked about this a lot of times as well, that they had facial recognition technology that they were putting into dashboards, or at least an experimentation, that can read your emotions and tell whether or not you're having a moment of road rage, and take over the car because it's seeing that you're getting angry, maybe read your pulse by holding the steering wheel, tell your blood pressure is going up, and be able to read your face and see that furrowed brow as your stress level is starting to rise. I mean, obviously they won't need that if you have something implanted that they can do a real-time dashboard and start saying beep, 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 beep. You've reached the threshold of being capable of being under unfettered control. We are going to take over for you now. But you're going to lose every moment of privacy. They're going to know where you are. And I mean, yeah, you still have your cell phone. And some of these new cell phones can't even pull the battery. I was looking at them just recently again because my phone is too old to do much of anything. It's running out of memory. It's running real slow. But you can't turn them off. But even if you turn off your cell phone, there are still places on the planet where you can get some privacy, even if your phone's not off. I know of a few little places that, and I'm sure up in the mountains somewhere, you're just not going to get signal because there is not a tower somewhere. But, with the advent with the new Facebook, believe it or not, we discussed these, the Facebook as well as the DARPA, Google, 24/7 flying drones and balloons that are going to be 5G internet access to every nook and cranny on the globe. You have satellite now, so when you're in a remote location, there's a lot of places you can get satellite. I always used to think how cool it would be in the top of the Himalayas to be able to still get your internet if need be. But I'm telling you guys, we don't have time off the grid now, ever. And don't think that does not affect you psychologically as well as physically. We read a story a week or so back that took a look at a new study where they're starting to discover texting was changing our physical brain patterns just by the act of texting. And they were saying, this is just this whole new area of science that we don't understand. Now, how long has this technology been out, right? We just had the 25th anniversary of the very first website. So 25 years this has been going on, and they are just now starting to see the ramifications. How many times has that happened with a drug? Drugs are out there, and now all of a sudden you're seeing class action lawsuits for A, B, and C because, you were taking this drug. You were using talcum powder, and now you have ovarian cancer. You were eating off a non-stick cookware, and like many people still are. And DuPont had a big lawsuit showing that the Teflon causes liver cancer. How is that even possible that it's still on the market being sold? They do this to us on a daily basis. And we are but guinea pigs. We always have been. They test things on the population, and when there's plausible deniability or some sort of law on the books that prevents you from being sued, like the vaccine companies, you can only go to that pot of money if you have some sort of irrefutable proof. And it's been documented in the VAERS database that, the vaccine caused some real damage, then maybe you got a leg to stand on, but there are limits to that. And what kind of a price do you put on a human life? How are they being concerned about you or your child's well-being? or the well-being of the planet for that matter. I mean, look at how many victims there have been, and not just humans, but animals, plants, soil, air, water. I mean, these are all, I don't know if you'd actually call them living entities, but they're as close to living as living can be. They are required for life for a lot of them. I mean, they are the building blocks. And now they've moved on to the greatest building block of all, again with the same wanton insanity, and that is the building block of life. They are DNA splicing and dicing. I subscribed to a new Twitter feed that was suggested in my feed. I don't remember what it was, but the very first story was about some new revolution now. Jennifer Dauda and the CRISPR technology is partnering with all these other new firms to be able to push the limits of CRISPR. Like we need any more limits being pushed. These genies have not only been let out of the bottle, but they are now drunk with lust and having an orgy. I mean, this is just beyond insane. And these building blocks of life that they are going to wantonly splice and dice and cross-pollinate between species that were never meant to be pollinated. I mean, reproduction within a species is within a species for a reason. We are now getting the Tower of Babel at a genetic level, and that is not going to be beneficial for any of us. You know, the perfecting that is happening right now is happening because once these technologies are perfected, and we have suffered from the 1.0, even 2.0, and maybe even 3 or 4 or 5.0 versions of mistakes that were made, once it is perfected, then it will be for the rich and powerful. Then it will be for the ones pulling the strings. It's not going to be for us. They're not going to give it to the underlings that are already living on socialized medicine and universal basic income to be able to live forever. What good are you performing except being a lab animal? And we don't need 7 billion lab animals. You know, what are they saying? 500,000? A million? Let's even say a million. 10 million lab animals. That's a big delta of people that aren't needed anymore. You know, so let's just go all nuts. That's why we have seed banks. That's why we're making a DNA database. It's an ark, people. It's an ark. So once we want to go seed another planet somewhere, they got that 100-year spaceship that they're building, Earthship, whatever it's called, that is planned by, again, rich tech billionaires, funding, as well as institutions, private institutions. I almost think the Venus Project might be a part of that as well. They're going to go out and seed the universe with uncorrupted human DNA, start a new Adam and Eve civilization, and get it all started all over again. And we're going to be left with this lunatic planet of complete and utter destruction. The beauty of nature completely usurped by lunatics who were only concerned with being able to conquer and remake in their own insane image in the name of a better future. Whose future? Not my future. Not your future. This is not, if I had a vote, how my future would be playing out. I would say after all these years and all the questionable things that have been done with technology, that we really should be taking a step back versus a step forward and launching this whole new life form that we are creating called artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence and CRISPRing technologies are going to remake this planet in a way that we have never imagined in our wildest dreams. And we are allowing people that are bloodlust thirsty to pull the purse strings, to pull the experimental strings, and to guide this technology with the I don't remember what they called it, directed evolution. I don't think humans have ethically gained a position yet to be able to be the creators of life, the manipulators of life. I don't think that we deserve. We are still a warring people. We are going to use these. Remember, the Department of Defense is involved. They are the killing machine. Remember how when we dug into CRISPR and George Church in that interview that he did, that we listened to, I think it's recorded actually in one of the archives. He talked about the beginnings of CRISPR, and before CRISPR became a splicing and dicing machine to be able to zip and unzip, rezip, slice and dice, swap out one DNA sequence for another, it had just been a zipper, an unzipper, I should say. And it was a killing machine. Well, you launch something like that through some sort of disease vector. We dug a lot into the biowarfare program in the United States quite a while ago, last year I believe. Pretty deeply, and some of the work being done at Plum Island and Fort Detrick, Maryland, back in the day, they were using insects as disease vectors. Things such as ticks, fleas, and, mosquitoes. So now let's just walk right in the door, Oxitec. Funded with sprinkled funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, all in the name of curing disease. And let's use this newfangled technology called CRISPR to splice and dice these mosquitoes and make them the new ecological solution to curing these diseases that just, because of climate change, came out of nowhere, never were dangerous before, and became this epidemic. We have Hillary Clinton calling Congress saying you need to get back into session to approve that Zika funding bill. We need that $1 billion to kick this thing off. They just had the very first baby born and die in Texas, apparently from birth defects from Zika. As this Zika pandemic wink is exploding to 17 now in the homeland in Florida. How much would it take for them to use the vaccines, to splice and dice for the vaccines? What would it take for them to use the mosquitoes and splice and dice them to become delivery vehicles, just like they studied as part of the biowarfare program at Plum Island? Well, funny you ask. I'm going to take a little detour for a minute to mosquitoes because I looked this up. I've talked about this story many times, and I looked it up while I was doing the notes for yesterday's show and started reading it again going, oh my, oh me, oh my. I think the whole entire Zika psyop that is going on right now just found the connecting dot. This is a story out of MIT Technology Review. They put out a lot of good stories here. Of course, it's MIT, so you got to pay attention. They are in the know. And this is from March 19th, 2010. So a full 6 years ago. When we talk about that law of exponential or accelerating returns, where technology builds upon technology, so it's happening now at a complete upward trend very quickly. 6 years is an eternity for this technology. So there was a story titled, 2010, Mosquitoes Engineered into Flying Vaccinators. Flying vaccinators, yes. Bill Gates mentioned that also in one of his TED Talks. It says this is an interesting proof of principle that, of course, is unlikely to be put into practice. Wink, wink, ding, ding. Unlikely, yes. Researchers in Japan have transformed mosquitoes into vaccine-carrying syringes by genetically engineering the insects to express the vaccine for leishmaniasis, which is a parasitic disease transmitted by the sandfly in their saliva. Now, what's really interesting is Japan is kind of like our bitch. They have been for a long time. Japan's technology after the war was taken. And they had that, I don't remember what it's called, Area 19 or 417 or something like that, where they were doing all those mad human experiments. We took that research as well as the research and the scientists from Germany who were doing all kinds of mad science experimentation, and we put them, that was all Project Paperclip guys, and we put them at different strategic places, one of which happened to be Plum Island. Yeah, so they're working on that stuff. So it's just interesting that it was Japan. According to a study in Insect Molecular Biology, mice bitten by these mosquitoes, these genetically engineered mosquitoes, they were genetically engineered to express the vaccine for leishmaniasis, produced antibodies against the parasite. Yet it is not clear whether or not the immune response was strong enough to protect against infection. Well, I'm sure I could pretty much guarantee you that in the last 6 years they figured out whether or not the immune response was strong enough to protect against infection. It says, following bites, protective immune responses are induced just like a conventional vaccination, but without the pain and without the cost, says lead researcher Shankto Yoshida from the Jinsei Medical University in Japan, Yoshida, in a press release from the journal. What's more, he says, continuous exposure to bites will maintain high levels of protective immunity through natural boosting for a lifetime. Ding, ding, ding. So the insect shifts from being a pest to actually being beneficial. Researchers consider the project more of a proof of principle experiment rather than a viable public health option, at least for now. According to an article on Science Now, quote, there is a huge variation in the number of mosquito bites one person receives compared with the next. So people exposed to transgenic mosquitoes would get a vastly different dose of the vaccine, and it would be a bit like giving some people one measles jab and others 500 of them. No regulatory agency would, of course, sign off on that, says molecular biologist Robert Sinden of Imperial College London. Of Imperial College London. Wait a minute, that's in the UK where Oxitec is from. Even more interesting. Of course, it continues. Releasing the mosquitoes would also mean vaccinating people without what? Their informed consent. Yes, like we get a lot of that now. And ethical? No, unless they don't know about it. Yoshida conceded that the mosquito would be a quote-unquote unacceptable as a human vaccine delivery mechanism. However, flying vaccinators, or quote-unquote flying syringes as some have dubbed them, may have potential in fighting animal disease, says David Obrata, an insect molecular geneticist at the University of Maryland, College Park. Now, what do we have in Maryland? Fort Detrick. As well as lots of the alphabet agencies and all kinds of military. Yeah, I gotta tell you, and of course it's fighting animal disease, which that's what they study at Fort Detrick and Plum Island. Animals, he says, don't need to give their consent, and the variable dosage would be of less of a concern. So guys, there's a lot of writing on the wall as to what this is about, so this is a great excuse to let these genies out of the bottle. And one of the things that I've seen in stories, and I saw in the comments to the story, was how mosquitoes have a very limited lifetime. They breed quickly, but a limited lifetime, and they have a very short flight path. I don't know, it's only so many miles or meters, 437 meters or something, so times 3 is 1,200 feet, so maybe a mile for a mosquito. And so they're saying, well, how far could they go? But you got to remember, as they go a mile, and then they breed, and then they go a mile, and then they breed, and then they go a mile, then they breed, and some of those may have actually stayed behind and had multiple colonies of breedings. You could have a spread and a growth that maybe moves slowly, but after how many? 6 years, let's say? How long have they been sprinkling genetically modified mosquitoes in areas such as the Cayman Islands, and then, over in Brazil, and probably a few other places we might not know about, here and there. No, maybe we were experimenting, and whoops, a couple got out. You have all this going on. I'm not going to say that, an African country or two didn't get something dropped over the top of them, and some real-time experimentation was being done. And if you look at now CRISPR, and they're being able to crack these genomes, so, maybe they figured out how to get it to produce a vaccine. They obviously did in Japan, but maybe they flipped a few switches that now allow the mosquito to live instead of a day or a week. I don't even know what their lifespan is. Maybe they could live like a month, a year. What would happen then? And they have been experimenting with mosquitoes for a lot of decades already, for using them for biowarfare. So you can't tell me that we don't already know much of the secrets on how to weaponize this technology, and CRISPR just gives them the last magic key at the very top of the pyramid to now be able to make them into anything they want. I mean, who's to say that they couldn't literally embed some sort of biological camera into these things and program their cells to be able to, mutate in ways that we never possibly imagined. I mean, anything that you can imagine right now is a possibility. I would have to give you my professional opinion on that. I don't think that there is much of anything that if we really set our minds on wanting to do it, we couldn't do it. All right, well, that was a little side left-hand turn, but still under Mad Science Gone Mad. I want to get back to those big thing stories. This is day number 2 on it, and I want to finish it because down in the next paragraph, there is an anonymous survey that is being given that I think you and I are going to do together, okay? So anyway, putting aside this technology and the fashion debate, referring to the Google Glass, whether they will take on the name implantables or embeddables, this is back to this chip and chipping people. These under-the-skin devices will only magnify such controversies. To be chipped will be to abandon with a sort of finality any pure notion of privacy in one's life, and intrusive as smartphones can be in recording our daily habits, locations, and predilections. At least we have the option to shut them off, leave them at home, or even throw them into the ocean if we find ourselves so compelled. Embeddables might end, or at least fundamentally change, our ideas of solitude. We will never be alone again. And that's kind of where my rant was previously to talking about the Zika mosquitoes, is that even on the highest mountaintop, you will never be alone. You will have a voice in your head that will be able to communicate with you. Whether, today it'll just be in a dashboard, tomorrow it might literally be a voice. That'll be like your best friend that has known you since the day you were born, recording every moment, indexing, filing, and giving you recommendations. Being your augmented brain and connecting you to the cloud. And I see that as a definite possibility. Good old Ray Kurzweil, that's been his dream. That's been his evangelist shtick for a long time. And they're going to make it happen. So, would you have an implantable chip inside of you? And if you want your voice heard on this question, you can take the MIT Age Lab 2-minute survey on embeddable technology. I think that's going to make 2 shits of a difference. But I think we should do it. says, my personal hunch, and this is the author of this story, is that for baby boomers, millennials, and those in between like me, Generation Xer, the question for many might be fuck no, or maybe a very tentative maybe. And for the large multi-generational cohort that met the onset of this revolutionary wave of technology as adults, and that is our children who didn't know the world before the VCR, before video games, before instant gratification 24/7 with anything and everything, sitting on a couch not moving, having summers inside in front of the air conditioner and the TV. For those kids, the jump from a smartphone to a smart chip might simply be not that much of a jump. But for those adults from before all of this, it might be too invasive and perhaps even violate certain convictions about what it means to be human. And I have to tell you guys, I'm not trying to be a resistant consumer at all. I was an embracer of technology and someone who truly believed and evangelized for 25 years. I've told this before, if I had to put a label on what everything and anything that I've done in my professional career, what I was an evangelist for technology. I could sell you technology and explain to you why it was good and teach you to build it and show you everything you needed to know. And price and dice it. And put it together and troubleshoot it too. But I was an evangelist. And now when I look at what is happening and how our tables have been turned and how they used us to build the machine that's going to be used against us and is going to literally steal our humanity and the nature that I love so much. You just don't even know how much solitude and happiness I find just being alone in the woods. And the beauty and the joy of just watching the birds and the little fuzzy wild animals run around. They're going to take all of that away from us. They're going to turn it into a synthetic aberration. They even said, that is what that Weiss Institute is all about. It's the biologically inspired engineering. That's what the synthetic human genome is all about. They are stealing and copying and creating synthetically DNA. Synthesizing from scratch and making a synthetic human without parents. That is the plan. So I am one of those people that feel violated, that they are stealing not only mine, but future generations' humanity and the beauty of all that was. And they're going to mix it up in a petri dish and create some insane world in some lunatic's beautiful vision in their minds of what it means to be alive. That is not where we need to be going, and this entire planet needs to wake up immediately and understand that. This is no longer fantasy, and as a matter of fact, they already let a lot of these genies out of the bottle, and they have moved along very quickly to the point where we need to put the brakes on. And the only way that the brakes are going to go on is some large calamity right now. I hate to say it. We have this lunatic election that, of course, is distracting everyone from all this lunatic science. And whoever gets in that White House is going to flip that final switch. That's all they're waiting for. That switch needs to be flipped. All the pieces are in place for invasive surveillance. And they're going to be able to implement it now that they've gotten the Department of Defense involved in all of it. Like I said, they've been involved for a long time. But now the DOD has all that sprinkle funding that they've been giving around for a long, long time is coming to fruition. It is payday, baby. It is coming back. It is coming back. It is the second coming. I'm just sick over it. I'm absolutely sick over it. So, all right, let's try and do this MIT survey. To chip or not to trip, would you have a microchip placed under your skin? Microchip technology is advancing rapidly, and being chipped may be in your future. A tiny sliver of highly functioning silicon implanted under your skin could make you a part of the Internet of Everything. I mentioned before that phrase, the Internet of Everything, again, is another recycled phrase that was used for Cisco. That was Cisco's phrase. That was their tagline. I helped create the Internet of Everything. That was the technology that I sold. And that was giving the world an IP address. That was getting routers out there everywhere. The Internet of Everything. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever imagine they'd be coming after me and my kid. And my dog. Think about the benefits. It says, a microchip may make it easier for security to identify people in airports or in other highly vulnerable areas, of course. It'll keep you safe. Wearables such as Fitbit are certainly popular means to collect fitness information. But a chip under your skin could be a way of measuring countless physical metrics from blood glucose to blood pressure, as well as a way of dispensing medication on time and just in the right dose. So not only is it going to keep you safe, but it's going to keep you healthy too. Already used by many families for their favorite pets, a microchip might make the difference if a loved one with Alzheimer's or a young child wanders off and becomes lost. Oh, it's going to protect your loved ones. Let's push that oxytocin button. Guys, listen to this sales elevator pitch. That's what they call it in the corporate world. This is an elevator pitch. This is the spin that they're going to sell it, to give you the dangling carrot, to promise you immortality, keeping you healthy, keeping your loved ones and you safe. Some researchers even suggest that being chipped will eliminate the need for passwords, and all passwords are so insecure and inconvenient. Regina Duggan could even replace your keys or your credit cards. And imagine that your touch alone will give you access to your computer, open your front door, and pay for your bus fare. Remember yesterday when we read the original article about this, all you gotta do is have some improper thoughts, Johnny, and they're gonna be able to lock you out of your house and your bank account. It's like losing your wallet and your keys. They'll be able to turn the red alert on your chip so the drones come and find you, GPS your location, and drone bomb you, and probably laser weapon you, drilling a laser hole in your skull, and it is all over. It'll vaporize you on the spot. So please, complete this brief anonymous survey exploring people's attitudes toward evolving microchip implantable technologies. This survey should take about 3 minutes to complete. Thank you from MIT. All right, let's go. You guys can help me answer the questions. Are you willing to have a microchip implanted under your skin? Number 1 is definitely yes. Probably yes. Might or might not. Probably not, or definitely not. Well, this is a hard one. No, it is not. Definitely not. Then they want to know why or why not. Because I don't want the lunatics running the asylum. in my head. Thank you very much. All right, next. I don't even know how many questions are on here. Do you have a smartphone? That's what there would be in the future. Hit the smartphone in your hand. Do you have a smartphone that you use, i.e. iPhone or Android? Yes or no, or don't know? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have one that I use. Yes, I do, unfortunately. All right, next. Please use the slider below to show how much you agree with the following statement, where 1 is strongly disagree, 10 is strongly agree. I often download new apps to use in my everyday life. Well, they got me there. I mean, I don't often, but I occasionally. So I guess I would have to give it a 5. If they're strong, I mean, I don't all the time, but I do when I need something. What is your gender? Well, we're going to fuck with the system. Male, female, or gender indeterminate. I think we're going to do an indeterminate gender. What year were you born? Well, again, we're going to mess with the machine and tell them 19... Oh, should we make ourselves a millennial? Or should we make ourselves a baby boomer? I don't know. Yeah, let's mess with it and we'll make ourselves a 1995. That would make us a 20-something. We're going to break their stats. Thank you for your time and taking this survey. Your response, and it doesn't say it, but your response and your IP address, Internet of Everything, has been recorded. All right, so let's see if we can finish up the rest of this this Big Think story. There's actually only a paragraph left. For those who have been born into or are just now growing up in this brave new world, they will almost certainly feel differently. And for those with deep suspicions like me, the incredible promise that embeddables contain might become too hard for even modern-day Luddites to resist. And that's what I said, guys. That's why they're preying on the sick and the dying. Because even if you don't agree with this technology, if it's your only hope, and you're seeing that glimmer, you're seeing the end of the hall, you're seeing that white light, and there's one more thing, you realize how much you love this world and you don't want to go. And they dangle that shiny bauble and tell you, all you gotta do is take this pill. All you gotta do is get injected with this little tiny piece of silicone. All you gotta do is eat this nutraceutical loaded with these special synthetic probiotics that are gonna go in and fix you all up. You'll be like you're 30 again. How many of us would say no? That's the scary part. That's where they have you against the wall. That's where they're going to be able, unless you're a diehard. And there are. I mean, my dad is a stubborn mother. And so is my grandpa. And so is my great-grandpa. You know, it's in the genes. I'm pretty stubborn myself. And there's principle that they stand for. And that principle, even in the last days, is something that doesn't exist much anymore in society. You know, your word, being someone that can be trusted, is not something that's valued a lot in the younger world that's been homogenized. You know, people are being bred and raised to have these psychopathic traits. And by definition, psychopaths lie and cheat. And they manipulate to get personal gain. That's really what's happened in general to society. They've taken on those 7 deadly sins. And there is no honor, value, or ethics anymore. And so that is the hope. But that is also the grand fall of the human race, because without those ethics and morals, without those being stubborn or standing for something, with being able to be swayed or persuaded by giving you the golden key to eternal life, potentially, we are taking the poison apple. It is going to be the fall of man. It is going to be the fall of human Earth 1.0. If a chip could recover your failing eyesight, would your answer to the above question change? And if it could reduce your chances of getting Alzheimer's, or, and I've said this so many times, and good old Regina Duggan, if it could give you superpowers, her exact words, or even replace the need to find, oh, listen to this consumeristic, shallow thing, find the TV remote, would you do it? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Soon, all of us will have a choice to make. Simply live within the Internet of Things, or to become a part of the Internet of Everything. And MIT's Age Lab actually contributed to this article. So, I think that puts some writing on the wall. It's actually very disturbing to me. MIT contributed to that article. So, alright, let's add a little bit more salt into the wound. The robot pill is coming. Little swallowable robots. This is in Bloomberg. Again, another mainstream publication for the common man to get used to this technology. We are being groomed. The robot pill is coming. The idea that you could repair a human body by swallowing something instead of making cuts is amazing. Director of MIT's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, Daniela Russ, age 53. Form and function. Squeeze into a pill. This robot unfolds, and this is this whole origami thing, and guess what? This came out of the Weiss Institute. This robot unfolds like an origami after it's swallowed, and it can be guided with a tiny magnet to remove foreign objects from the stomach or treat a wound by administering medication. Its origin, yes, we read about it last summer. Last summer, Russ and her colleagues began working to adapt an earlier foldable robot for medical use. Insertion. Uh-oh. Russ's team places the accordion-shaped robot into an inch-long, 0.09-ounce pill, which dissolves in the stomach in a minute or two. Hey, how interesting. That sounds like Regina Duggan's swallowable password pill as well. Then the robot expands to 1.4 inches by 0.7 inches by 0.3 inches. Doctors can then generate magnetic fields near the patient to guide the robot through the stomach, where they manipulate it to perform tasks. And then the biodegradable robot breaks down in the stomach like food. The project's funding comes from the National Science Foundation. Didn't we find out the National Science Foundation was also the organization that was funding Antarctic research? And Antarctic research included Wernher von Braun as part of the space program. And of course, Antarctica all began as part of the space program, and seeing what would happen to men in isolation before they were planning on sending men to the moon. The cost for equipment to manipulate the robot is pricey, but its own components cost less than $100 for the pill. And Russ and her team have tested this robot in a silicon-molded prototype stomach and are seeking now approval from MIT's Animal Care Committee to try it in piggies. She says that they are also looking to raise more money, and the experiments that they've been doing are very promising, says Ken Goldberg, a professor at University of California at Berkeley in robotics. Until now, he says, nothing has been able to essentially walk inside of the body. Ding, ding, ding. All right, guys, we only have about 30 seconds or so left. We're going to kick off tomorrow, starting with this one. Scientists build a biological computer inside of a cell. Yes, again, MIT engineers have developed a biological computational circuit capable of both remembering and responding to sequential input data. The group's work, which is described in this week's issue of Science, represents a critical step in the progression of synthetic biology with the integration of DNA-based memory, in particular, pointing the way toward building large computational systems from biological components, computing devices that are living cells, and ultimately programming complex biological functions. Oh my God! Here it comes, guys. Everything we've ever had nightmares about. Alright, make sure you stick around. It is Wednesday. Ms. Lonnie Clark is live up next, and all kinds of live radio. Josh live at 6. We have the guys from New York City with the new show called Spam. Definitely make sure you check it out. Liam Sheff then at 10 p.m. and at 11, Anti-Media Radio with Nick and DB Schwartz. All right, guys, have an awesome Wednesday, and I'll catch up with you tomorrow. Everybody take care.